Alright, so it's been a while since we've talked about AfterConflict on this channel, and I want to go back and show you guys what's been happening with it, from vehicles to weapon handling mechanics. But before we get into that, I need you to do me a favor. I want you to comment which country during the Cold War interests you the most. Mine would be East Germany, primarily because I just like the flag, and some of my older audience might have grown up during these times or even in an Eastern Bloc country, and I'd love to hear your stories. But anyways, let's get into it. So starting off with the updates on vehicles, we have a HD model of the T-72 in game, and it looks fantastic. I assume 3 people are going to be needed to operate it, which honestly, from my experience in squad and hell let loose, the communication factor is going to be very interesting, especially if you're on a team with people who don't speak English. But I am looking forward to seeing damage models and how explosives will react with ERA. But one thing I found really interesting was this thing. This is an infrared light, or to be more specific, a Lunar Spotlight. While you can't see this with your naked eye, when you use the NSPU scope, whether it be day or night, you can actually see the light being visible. And this also goes for the PSO1 scope. There is a slide that can be flipped down to allow infrared light to be visible, but whether it's nighttime or daytime, we can actually see the light. But when you compare it to the NSPU, it's a lot less in quality, but if you need to detect infrared, then you have this option available. Also, in regards to the IR light, a cool thing is if I enable this console command, it basically gives me night vision, and I can actually see where the lunar light is actually being shown on the mountain, and that's freaking cool, man. But moving on, we have a BMP2 firing tracer rounds as well as an ATGM at another vehicle. I like the erratic flight path and the fact that it takes a couple of seconds for the sound to be heard. This is because the speed of sound is actually being accurately portrayed in this video game. To counter these vehicles, we have a Mi-24P Hind F firing S8 rockets. Even though this is my favorite helicopter, we unfortunately won't have the pleasure of flying it. Instead, anything that flies will most likely be an ability that can be called in. But to counter these, we have footage of an SA-9 Gaskin, I probably butchered that pronunciation, firing a rocket at an A-10. And from the sounds of things, we will be able to get our hands on shoulder-mounted surface-to-air missiles, primarily the SA-7. But other counters to ground vehicles will include the RPG-22, which is already in the game, and it will be only available to the Soviets because historically the Soviets didn't actually give these weapons to other Eastern Bloc countries. I also asked who can access these weapons, whether it will be like a role system or like only 2 people per team or only 2 people per squad like in other games you might have played, and they said they didn't want to go that route, and they're going to go based on historical documents, and that is that most Soviet infantry actually had access to the RPG-22. However, at the moment, I do know that the East Germans will be getting the RPG-18, but the Western forces will get the M72 Law, Carl Gustav, AT-4, Panzerfaust 44, M202 Flash, M47 Dragon, and the Milan, or en français, Missile d'Infanterie Léger Anti-Char. You go 5 years of learning French and I can barely pronounce things, but I was told by Spitfire, who is one of the devs for AfterConflict, he said that the RPG-22, the M72 Law, and whatnot are inaccurate in real life. This means that hitting a tank over a couple of 100 meters is going to be a challenge. Also, the fact that these weapons are temperature sensitive and will be simulated appropriately in game. But moving on to more serious stuff, I want to talk about the advanced weapon handling mechanics. Now, I'm not American, but I assume that when you use a firearm, you put ammo in the gun, and you need to pull the pulley thing. And in AfterConflict, when you put in a magazine into a gun by pressing the R key, you also need to press the T key to pull the thing back to actually put a bullet into the chamber. I can tell you already that I am going to get SKS, just like in Rising Storm 2 Vietnam. You see the bullets go into the gun, but there's actually no bullet in the chamber, and when you need to shoot, your gun doesn't fire. But when we look at a gun such as the AKM with a PBS suppressor firing subsonic ammo, the gun will fire as normally. However, when we take away the suppressor, I can't fire like before, and instead I have to press the T key every time I shoot to basically rechamber the gun. And from what many people told me in my XM21 suppressed video from Rising Storm 2 Vietnam, basically with the subsonic ammo, there isn't enough gases being produced to do it automatically. Look, I don't know how to explain it, but I can picture it. Okay, when a bullet fires, it goes out the gun, right? But there are gases, and the gases push the thing back to like put a new bullet into the gun. Okay, I don't know the technical terminologies, but I can visualize it. But it is properly simulated in this game. But moving on to the KS-23, this weapon has some complex mechanics applied to it. This includes the ability to inspect the chamber as well as eject eject a shell and even reload one through the side of the gun. Now the thing is, I was a little bit confused on what the purpose to this is, and I was told sometimes it's faster to put in the shell in the side than reload from the bottom. Now in the gameplay that you're seeing, I can't actually stop the reload, but that will be fixed later on. But it's nice to have alternate reload methods. But when I reload from the side, I just slide one in and then I pump it and then I'm ready to shoot. So I suppose if you need a quick shell, it's actually easier to do it this way than this way. But moving on to another cool feature, and that is bullet fragments. I've already shown you in this game that bullets ricochet off surfaces, but they have added the ability for them to create fragments, and from what I've been told, these can still injure you if you come into contact with them. Believe me fellas, I've seen plenty of videos of bullet casings going into women's cleavage, and from the looks of things, it looks like it genuinely hurts, obviously because it's a fucking hot piece of metal, but it's good that this is being simulated. We can also see that if a tracer round ricochets off a certain way, it can actually cause a fire. And to any of my Australian and Californian friends watching this is PTSD inducing, and the footage that you're seeing with the fire is actually exaggerated. It's more or less to show you the fire mechanics, but it will be adjusted accordingly. But from the sounds of things, the environment will probably randomly combust in dry environments. But what I want to talk about is the difference in scopes. Some scopes in the game have an eye cup and some don't. When we have the PSO1 scope without the eye cups, we can see that I have some form of peripheral vision, but apparently one of the advantages of having an eye cup means there's less eye shadow and reduces the instability between the player's eye and the scope. But the last thing I want to talk about is the American weapons, which of course you can't really have a shooting game without the American faction because that's where the most of the market is. But look, I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. When you get different versions of a weapon and there are like slight differences, someone who's not like a complete gun nut, I do have difficulty telling the difference between different weapons. But for someone such as yourself who might know like the exact intricate details, mate, I can tell you're gonna love this game. But they are working on the M16A1 or Model 603, the XM177E2 or the Model 629. And you know the thing is, when I'm trying to record this video, I'm like looking at these images of different weapons on their website, and it's like that thing from The Office with like, oh yeah, corporate wants you to find the differences. I'm like just sitting here saying, oh, they're the same image, but then I find these like intricate differences in the images. I'm like, oh my god, that's different. I never noticed that and it was right in front of me. But we also have the M16A2, and quite frankly, from researching this game, talking to Spitfire, I've actually learned, I'm learning stuff, man. I know that I'm not quite at the top tier level of like gun nuts, but I'm going to get there one day, fellas, so just bear with me. But they are also working on the AKM's model, but I like how they show us images of the gun being pulled apart to show us the internals of the weapon. And also from the looks of it, we are going to have anti-personnel mines. They are modeling the Soviet PMN-2. Obviously, I hope this game does have good gore mechanics. Like if I get shot by a BMP-2 or if I step on a landmine, I want to see dismemberment. I want to be horrified. I want to get PTSD from this game, you know? Obviously, I feel bad for people who actually do have that, but you know what I mean. And lastly, they have updated the bullet models, and they vary depending on what size they are, as well as if they're tracer rounds, normal rounds, subsonic and everything. And even if we manually eject the bullet and see it go on the ground, or even the bullet casings, they are actually modeled and they do go on the ground, and they also make a noise. But nonetheless, if you are interested in this game, do check out the playlist on screen, as well as check out AfterConflicts Discord. I know that they usually do answer to comments whenever I upload a video, but if you do have a question, leave a comment. They'll probably answer it, but I can always pass on your questions to the developers, or perhaps join the Discord if you want to ask them yourselves. But anyways, I hope you guys did enjoy today's video, because if you did, please do consider leaving a like, subscribing, and sharing the video with your friends. Anyways, my name is Tantu, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.